Fedora.
You can't see her dark skin with the kilted.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of The Third Round. High atop Polish Hill, I'm Harriet Tubman. Welcoming, well, actually a facsimile there. Welcoming you to another edition of The Third Round, America's premier bar-based political talk show. I'm your host. I'm sorry. And now, we need to do this, the whole Ed McMahon. And now, I'm Harriet Tubman. Here's Pat Clark. Hi. Boy, was that tacky or what? We're here with a reasonable assembly of modern and finger puppet revolutionaries, and once again tuning in to talk about local politics and how it fits into the whole national scene and everything. This is great having Harriet Tubman on my finger here. I feel moved. Our guests this afternoon are Celeste Taylor, People for the American Way Foundation, and People for the American Way.
Shea
Guevara, and Frederick Douglass.
Looking good. Chris Potter, executive editor of the Pittsburgh City paper. With
Played today by Leon Trotsky.
Oh, you got Trotsky there.
Yeah, Trotsky.
Well, without the hatchet.
Without the ice axe.
And Khari Mosley, Ward Chair,
Mandela.
22nd Democratic Ward, and head of the League of Young Voters and the League of Young Voters Education Fund. Him and Nelson hanging out.
Nelson.
Well, here we are. We're in the home stretch. It's only, how many days? You got it up on your door?
8 or 9.
8 or 9 days to the election. Depending on you're watching this, it could be like day of. Who knows? But we're getting down to the nitty-gritty before the primary election. We thought we'd take a moment to pause, do some pre-election analysis, and prepare for the long-term gain after we get done with the primary. So let's start with how do you fit this into the bigger picture and everything, the basics of democracy, and those great people ahead who are on our fingers who have before us, facsimiles thereof, have done some really basic work for democracy. Celeste?
Yeah.
How do you maintain democracy in our country?
Well, I need
city?
help from a few friends. Not just Shay and Frederick, but Pat, Khari, and Chris. And the third round helps a lot too.
Other people out there in the audience? You got something going on with
Absolutely.
like the
I
basics
think you
of
always
democracy?
got to have an event.
This is
But
a
the
setup.
event needs to be fun, educational, participatory, and give away some things. But it's pretty serious. The upcoming election on May 15th requires election protection, so we'll be doing training. So glad to be joined by a whole bunch of different folks that will make this democracy convention in Pittsburgh a lot of fun.
And that's the Democracy Convention at the Union Project on Tuesday, May 8th, starting at what time? 4 o'clock. 4 p.m.
We'll go till 9.
Perfect for after-school activities for high
Yes,
school
we got
kids?
some movies.
Activists?
Yeah, let's go voting for the kids. Then later on we'll get a little bit more serious with Paradise Gray. Turn off Channel 0, and we got Tim Potts.
Tim Potts coming in from Democracy Rising, Pennsylvania.
So are you expecting, I'm curious about election protection. I mean, generally, election protection is prevent fraud from happening at the polls. It seems like what people are most concerned about this May is nobody actually showing up to vote at all. Are there places where you're particularly concerned about the possibility of fraud? Are there particular races where you're especially concerned?
Yeah, that word fraud always confuses me. I think what we're trying to do is protect the rights of a community that has been traditionally disenfranchised for many reasons. It could be the voting machines, the fact that their name isn't on the poll votes. It could be because the poll workers aren't trained. It could be because people are playing dirty tricks. Whatever it is, we want to be there and we're going to protect them.
Well, bottom line is getting people to be able to vote who should be able to vote.
Right.
Are you specifically focusing on particular neighborhoods or districts within the
Oh
city?
yes, the 9th City Council District.
This is the race where there are 8 at last count. I don't know. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong. 8 candidates running for Tawanda Carlisle's.
Nelson Mandela just jumped in.
Nelson Mandela
Right.
also. This is Tawanda Carlisle's seat. She and 7 other challengers going after her. Why that particular district? Is that?
Well, not just because I live there, and I graduated from Westinghouse. I'm just totally invested and concerned in that community, thinking it's critical to Pittsburgh being able to rise up and really be the #1 livable city. Can't be just okay for some people, good for some.
Right.
It needs to be good for everybody. So I'm thinking that this 9th city council district is important for us to make sure that the results are what people meant it to be, and make sure everyone is enfranchised.
There's also been, if I recall last year, there were some questions around some voting machines in the east end of Pittsburgh as well, which is the part of town we're talking about. Is that also part of what makes you a little bit skeptical or wary of how things are going to be carried out this time?
Yes, and when both machines break down, there may not be any emergency powers.
Right.
Something we need to make sure.
Or people that know how to follow the procedures that happens once there is a breakdown with the machine, or there is some sort of discrepancy or malfunction. I think it's important to also have people there to help assist, the judge of elections and the elections officials, because a lot of them are not properly prepped to handle those situations.
Pat, I'm shocked. I mean, aren't the poll workers trained in these technologies, Mr. Mosley? I mean, how could this happen?
I mean, they're trained to a degree, but I think that, they're not approaching, the training. They're not approaching the seriousness of, election protection, with the vigor that People for the American Way have, the way, the League of Young Voters Education Fund has supported People for the American Way in the past with the election protection work. And, we go, beyond the call of duty to make sure that people really understand how these machines work, what to do, how to report problems. And a lot of the elections officials have been doing it for so long. They're very set in their ways, and they also get intimidated by the machines. So there's cases of people filling out emergency ballots on notebook paper because they didn't know the procedures of how to fill it out.
Okay.
Really? Here in Pittsburgh?
And it was not government issued notebook paper. Well, and these are challenging times. I don't know if folks maybe have been paying attention to the election cycles since, say, 2000. People tend to pay a lot of attention to elections. We have had, as a result of the 2000 election, the Help America Vote Act. We've had our machines changed. A lot of the stuff is wacky, weird, and unusual, not just to the folks who are working the polls, but all of us. And folks really haven't, I could be mistaken, but they haven't really come to a comfort level on all this, to the point that we may in fact be in a situation where the voting machines that we've just spent a lot of money of, the counties, essentially federal money that came through the county on new voting machines, may, as a result of a newly elected Democratic Congress, kind of be shit canned. We may get new machines. They're gone. So we're in a period of great change, and in the midst of all this, to expect workers who haven't ever had to upgrade technology and process to be able to be fully trained, to no fault of theirs necessarily, there's challenges. And I think one of the things too that we got to point out, because as these poll workers and poll volunteers, what we're talking about is not like, Freddie from Homewood standing outside of the polls saying, like, vote for my guy. What we're talking about is nonpartisan initiatives to make sure that the basic right to vote is covered in a nonpartisan manner, and that's a challenge.
What should, and I'm just as a public service, because wouldn't it be nice if we actually performed one of those once on this show? As a public service, if somebody encounters either difficulty getting into the polls or whatever else on election day, or they see something that doesn't quite strike them as being up to snuff, what procedure should they follow? What should they do?
Well, where we'll be at, there will be signs, there will be people, there will be toll-free numbers. I think overall, in terms of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County, we got to make sure that we get numbers out there for people to call, including the Board of Elections and the Department of State.
And do you know what those numbers are, just in case?
Nope, but we'll get them out there.
I know the Board of Elections is 350-4500.
Cool.
That's 350-4500.
Thank you, Mr. Engels.
Call today. Yeah, no.
Trotsky?
Oh, and
I-
188 votes PA.
1-800-VOTES-PA? Thank you. All right, so we've got the basic democracy levers, and voting and all that stuff covered, right? That's not true. If we actually, I would be remiss without encouraging people who are interested in the vote and protecting the vote to volunteer. You can do so by contacting the folks at the People for the American Way Foundation, showing up Tuesday, May 8th at the Union Project at 4 p.m. What time's training start?
4:30, 5:30, 6:30, and 7:30. And Pat, please give a plug for Everybody Vote. You're a co-sponsor.
That's true. That's true. We had co-sponsors, Everybody Vote, everybodyvote.com. You can find a lot of basic information about what's up with the election and how to vote and all the basics and links to other organizations that provide useful information. Everybodyvote.org or .com. Tune in. Or what's the thing you do? Surf.
Log on.
Log on. That's what. Exactly. So now that we've eliminated
Don't film
Connor.
that.
All right, so back to the whole partisan thing. So what's up?
I'm curious, Khari, as somebody who obviously is involved with the League of Young Voters, what races you folks are particularly paying attention to? I understand you've been active in a couple of city council races. What can you tell people about this?
League of Young Voters has done a lot of work engaging District 3, the South Side, a part of Oakland, and District 7, which is like Morningside, Lawrenceville, Highland Park, around the city council races. We've been doing a lot of work, mainly using the transit issue as a way to ID voters and get a sense of where voters are at. So there's a lot of work being done in those particular areas. So we've gotten a really positive response, throughout those areas in regards to the transit issue. We've done some work as well as in our Council District 9 as well, to ensure that voters are being engaged and to ensure that, that we can do as much as we can to make sure that there's turnout, and that we don't have that low turnout. And the only way we can do that is if we have the type of voter engagement that you see during presidential elections go year round.
So you're using transit, even though transit isn't, I mean, most people think of transit as a county issue because, of course, the Port Authority is a county organization. So, but how is that, so how are you translating that into a city issue when city council folks don't actually have any say over how the Port Authority is run?
Yeah, I mean, we're taking advantage of the fact that there is also like county legislative races. The county executive is also up. So, we try to use it, one way to frame the county races, but also a way to frame the city council races in a way of saying, you have to ensure that even though your city council representative can't affect policy at the county or state level around transit, they could be a spokesperson, they could be a lobbyist on behalf of the constituency and be a voice. Similar to how some elected officials were very early during the public hearing process. Like Jim Mosnick was one, for example, who came out and spoke out at the hearing. So I think those types of things are very important. I think, the electorate needs to encourage elected officials to take more active roles like that and more often be spokespeople and kind of quasi-lobbyists for the constituency, particularly constituencies that depend a lot on public transit. Even though it's something they can't direct effectively, they will be affected by it, and their constituency be affected by it, and we try to, draw that correlation.
There's also, there is a serious county race. The county executive, obviously, Dan Honorado, with the challenger Rick Swartz of the Bloomfield-Garfield Corporation. Not a hotly contested race, I think we'd say, but there is at least one city council, county council race from the city, which is Brenda Fraser, the incumbent, facing a challenge from Matt Arena, who is the endorsed Democrat. I'm curious. Most people have
signs I saw for the first time today, which
Yes.
feature the Civic Arena,
Civic Arena
which
says,
I
"We
presume
need a new arena."
Yeah, I presume that there was some thing on the ballot. That's basically how he's pitching himself, is building
Because
a new
better,
arena.
What better way to identify yourself than with a building that everybody freaking
Just
needs?
placed
So,
tens
but
of
this is an interesting.
thousands.
This is a race
Signs,
nobody
yeah.
has really paid that much attention to, including I confess the city paper itself. For folks out there, Brenda Fraser, I believe, has been on county council representing this district since the outset of since county council was created.
Almost.
Am I wrong about that? Or
Almost. It was Tom Forster's seat.
that's right, and then he passed away.
And then he passed away, and she filled that position after Tom Forster passed away. And I think Joe Natoli, Joe Natoli got appointed for a brief period of time, and then he stepped down, and then she ran. I think that like in 2001. So she's been there for a long time, and.
But it's unusual for an incumbent not to get the party endorsement, right?
In this
Yeah, but she's never
gotten it.
Yeah, I mean, she's never gotten the party endorsement.
Is she just not playing the ball game? Is she a defective candidate? Like, why would it be that the Democratic Party
Pretty
wouldn't?
independent.
Yeah, she's
So it's that independence thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely, done her own thing, and, at times voted, against labor, at times voted against part of the traditional, Democratic power base, showing, experience. And then it was, and there's a certain feeling.
Leon Trotsky doesn't like it when you vote against labor. What did she vote against labor on? What?
The living
What?
wage.
So
Living wage.
She voted against the living wage?
Well, she had only
Excuse
been
me.
there like a week.
Excuse me, I'm ignorant on this, but so this district, name some of the districts that make up
Much of the city.
much of the
Yeah,
city.
it's like
Garfield,
Garfield,
where I used to
South
live.
Side.
they go from like Stanton
East-
Heights,
Homewood.
No, it's like Stanton Heights, Morningside, like a lot of District 7. And then it crosses the river to the north side. And then it's like lower north side, Mexican War Streets, Manchester, all the way to Brighton Heights. So basically from Stanton Heights to all the way to Brighton Heights, across the river.
Very
Millvale, like a lot of those areas are all part of that.
Very diverse. So there's an underrepresentation maybe of white men. Is that why a gentleman got the endorsement?
It is true that if Ms. Fraser loses this race, there will only be one African American on council,
Yep.
and I think there will be only 3 women on council.
But I thought the diversity was a goal of, government and party. Aren't they all committed to that sort of thing? It surprises me, frankly, that unless did she shoot somebody in the Democratic Party? Is that what happened? Didn't get the endorsement?
Not quite.
A lot of people like her. I mean,
Yeah.
she takes it serious. I mean, that's one thing. I don't think everyone on county council takes this position serious. I think she does.
Yeah, and Matarena had a lot of connections, in the traditional Democratic Party. And I don't know exactly what led to, maybe he just decided he wanted to do it, but he's good at relationships with like Carmela Mullen, who's the vice chair of the party. There's a number of Democratic ward leaders that were supporting him, circulating his petitions. I was contacted by people in the Democratic Party that asked me to even, because it's my council district as well. And so there was a lot of party support for him, and I don't know exactly what led into them en masse, deciding not to support Brenda Fraser and getting behind Matarena. But obviously it's something that, something's below the surface, because it's a very, at least in my opinion, I saw a very concerted effort by a group of people in the Democratic Party to, really push for Matarena's candidacy.
So, but who is this guy? Because like most people have never heard of this guy ever.
He used to work for county council. He was very involved in Morningside community organizations. When they had that fire on Baker Street before Christmas, he raised $35,000 and got each family $7,000, or 7 families $5,000, and so he's really been active. He was elected official in some very small township for a while, and so he has a history of being involved in politics and being involved in the unions, and he was a legislative aide at county council for a couple of years.
Well, it sounds like doing some good work too. I mean, that's commendable, going out and getting some funding for folks who lost their housing. But I've seen commendable works on a number of candidates who did not get Democratic Party endorsements, especially as incumbents.
But why did she vote against the living wage? Why?
Well, actually,
Leon
I
Trotsky
really,
wants to
really
know.
know, and I think Frederick and Shay may know too. I think she was fairly new and abstained, like
Oh,
a
that's
week.
right, she did. That's right, I remember that. That's right, and she
I think-
said,
Pension is no excuse.
And also, she was allies with, I'm not going to say she was, but a lot of people have felt that she was allies with Jim Roddy, and Jim Roddy was a big supporter of her and helped her get on council. So that's part of
He's a Republican.
There was a lot of that talk around, but you know
Yeah.
what? I really actually talked to her personally
Yeah.
because of the NAACP, like saying you better vote for the living wage. She's like, I'm new, don't think I can do it right now.
Huh.
Not happy, but
That's right. And okay, so if I recall correctly, she abstained, and then James Sims
Voted against it.
Who
sponsored it?
he was the sponsor of the measure.
Wait a second, he sponsored it,
And
but then he voted against
his own
it.
measure, and of course, shortly after
John
that, he
Kerry
became
method.
he became right. He voted
Like
for
this.
it. He voted for it before he voted against it.
the ghost of Linda Wambach is in the house.
I know it, but okay. So this is interesting. So then he votes against it, and then of course, shortly after that, he was put in the position of becoming the president of county council. I mean, what does this mean? I mean, like, is there any significance to that? I mean, the issue has, as far as I know, never come up since then.
Well, every
before
time
Allegheny County Council.
Sims would go out pushing the casino stuff, it was thrown up in his face. So it's kind of people not forgetting.
Why do you think the issue hasn't come up since then? I'm curious.
The living wage?
Yeah, the living wage issue.
Don't we all have a living wage and universal health coverage? I thought that was pensions. That was all taken care of last year, wasn't
Regan
it?
talked about it in a meeting with BPAP.
Denny Regan?
Yeah, he was interested.
Denny Regan.
He wanted to know the history of it in Pittsburgh, which is a sad history.
Denny Regan wanted to
Yeah.
know the history of the living wage.
Yeah.
Like he was interested, like in a, can we get this thing started again kind of way?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
You
Well,
know,
there
I've
you
always
are.
said Denny Regan never got enough credit for his
Oh, no, good.
political. Exactly.
For
A
the
lot of
things
people
that
didn't
he
realize.
asked.
And
Crusader.
a germane point, now that Denny Reagan is gone, is he? I guess.
Yes.
Is he on the payroll anymore?
I don't. You know.
I don't. Yeah, it's up to you. Check with the controller's office. But the question is, who then would pick up the cause for
I don't know. This is
living
Mike-
wage?
Mike
Anybody else
Carlson?
on county council who would be willing to step to it? Regionally, I know one of the hits against the living wage in Allegheny County is that everybody's going to like scoot out to 84 PA, where I might add Joe Hardy is marrying a 22-year-old woman
goodness.
with a blurry face on the evening news. But they'll just hop over to 84 PA, and you know everything will be groovy because they'll be outside of the smoking ban and also the living wage area. Anything being able to be done on a county or regional level, statewide, living wage?
Well, statewide, I mean, the state did up the minimum wage. I mean, that's
But can you live on their upped?
no, but I mean,
Minimum wage.
it is a step in the right direction. I mean, if you were making $5.35 an hour, you're now making more than $6 an hour, and that's a good thing, I think, by any stretch. So
But we're not satisfied.
right, no,
Yeah.
of course not, and you shouldn't be. But I mean, nobody should be. But I mean, it's still $1 more an hour.
I feel shame paying less than $10 an hour, frankly. For
Your
anything.
domestic help is that?
For, like outside service.
I think for a living wage campaign to be successful, I think someone has to successfully bring labor together with concerned community organizations, economic justice groups, African American organizations, organizations that advocate for women, particularly single women, women from low income backgrounds. I think that you have to bring a number of constituencies together to move it forward in a way where you have the type of leverage that you can put the type of public pressure that you need. Because I think, and I wasn't really involved with the living wage campaign. At the time I was working for Salahuddin, who was in support of it in city council. But I remember that there was a movement. There was absolutely a movement going on, but I think it could be broadened further. And I think there was a successful attempt to separate, low-income African American community from, minority business people and minority women.
An
businesses.
effort by who? Who made this effort? Whom? Yes,
I would
thank
say
you.
like there's like a lot of people who have offices in the regional enterprise tower.
The old aluminum building. I've heard of
Pittsburgh
that.
Works. What do you know about that? Khari? Can we bring that back?
We could. I think we could bring something like it back. I don't know if it'll exactly be Pittsburgh Works, but I think we have to figure out a way to productively bring African Americans who are underemployed, minority and women business owners and the building trades together at the table. And I think that that and we got to have a type of meeting where people could be frank and be open, and say things, and get things off their chest, and then I think we'd be able to move forward.
Can we bring them here?
I would love to.
To the bar, you mean?
Well, and I think living wage is one of several issues. Perhaps an even more pressing issue is the issue of public transportation support, because that's clearly something that everybody. I mean, Rick Schwartz is making a specific campaign of running against Honorado to try to raise the issue of funding public transportation. I mean, there's more than one issue out there that needs to be floated around and attended to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anybody caught the story on WPXI last night, but they're talking about like more cuts, like over the next 5 years. It's like 42% service cuts and 1,300 jobs lost at the Port Authority over the next 5 years if they don't figure a dedicated funding source. So I think.
Well, it's coming down hard, and essentially it's all Sam Smith, our dear friend from Puxatawney, Pennsylvania, has basically said, fuck that, we ain't funding nothing. Dead on
He looked at
arrival.
his shadow and he said 6 more years of transit cuts.
Pain in the inner city and urban areas in Pennsylvania, yeah.
So what do we do?
Okay, wait. So it's deeper than that, though, because here's the thing. So everybody wants to blame sort of the Republicans or whatever. An esteemed colleague of mine in the mainstream media, the MSM, as you're fond of referring to us on the internet.
You mean the drive-by media?
Right, exactly. So this guy says that what's really going on here is any state help for transit will bring with it the requirement for some kind of matching funds from the county. So
Yeah.
Dan Honorado then doesn't actually want more state money because he knows that any extra state funding will require an additional commitment of money from the county that he doesn't really want to give because the county is already somewhat cash-strapped and et cetera,
Well,
et cetera.
cash-strapped. Not only that, we're leaving state funding on the table, several hundreds of thousands of dollars unmatched by county right now that is going lost. And I mean, we've talked about this earlier on this very program, from this very bar, in this very table, about a regional approach to transportation funding, and yet when people talk about regional transportation, it seems to mean Allegheny County. Isn't there ways that we can pool resources?
No.
Yes, there are.
No, there's not.
Absolutely.
But where would these unmatched funds, where do they exist? We know, don't
They're
we?
state funding.
Yeah,
State
but-
funding
yeah.
that has to be met by a county or
No,
a regional
the
level.
county money, where is that at?
Right now, the county is paying essentially out of its general operating budget. I think to the tune
25
of about
million.
25 million. Although this past year, they did some refinance stuff and they managed to cut that down by I think $8 or $10 million or whatever. So the county
Well, that's
is
the
paying.
problem,
The
isn't
county is paying into this, and I mean one of the things that's, as I think we've discussed in the show before, is one of the things that's going on is last year Governor Rendell had a sort of task force commission to look into this, and what the task force said is, Pennsylvania is unusual in the sense that there is a smaller, like the local folks don't pay enough into
smaller
a
percentage.
much smaller percentage of the funding comes from local folks than in other
Yeah.
transit systems in other parts
That's
of the
right.
country. So clearly, the sort of implication of that is you guys have got to kick down some money before we
Because
really gonna
we're
do
doing so well.
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
I mean,
right.
if you look
Exactly.
at other regions around the country that are similar to Pittsburgh, their county or their equivalent to a county government is kicking up like $40+
Right.
million a year. Our county's doing $25 million a
What's the
year.
percentage though, and is it designated?
I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but it would be like
We're lower on the percentage level.
yeah, we're lower. Like the average county, the size of Allegheny with the similar public transit, they're putting up $40 million a year.
Well-
Our county is putting up $25 million a year, and Honorado wants to not put up any money. He wants to take that $25 million and do something completely different.
But in
with it.
shifting the responsibility, the state's saying like, oh, it's all on the county, and the county's saying like, oh, but what about the state? The bottom line is the state cannot walk away from this because there's only certain very limited specified means that the county and local government can raise funding for this. And unless the state takes some action, even if we wanted to, even if every single one of you out there got on the phone and called 50,000 people, convinced 25,000 of them to actually do something about this, we couldn't do jack shit because the legislature is the one that controls the purse strings and how we can go out and fund anything we want
So
to
that's
here.
who we call now?
Well, it's one of those things. It's a complex issue. It's one of the things where both of them can like go like, oh, I don't know, talk to him, and in a sense, they're both right, but ultimately, even if we want to have regional or local funding for public transportation, we can't do it unless we go through Sam Smith and say, please, can we raise our own money, Mr. Smith? And then maybe Sam will say yes.
Well, we don't want to beg, so what do we do next?
I think, we have to, continue to organize with not only locally, like we were doing with the Stop the Bus Cuts campaign, but I also identify people in other parts of the state. I think there's 19 other transit authorities in the state of Pennsylvania, and really begin to organize with them and build a statewide coalition to then go to Harrisburg. And, when you have not just Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, because it's always Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, but Harrisburg has public transportation, Erie has public transportation.
And not just that, but
College.
by the end of this year, every single county in the state of Pennsylvania will have a level of either access or whatever you want to call it, transportation for folks with disabilities, seniors who aren't able to get out there, because that's one very successful program that has expanded coverage from, I think, something like how many counties we have? 422, something 67 exactly. We expanded from somewhere around, I believe, 52 counties with coverage pretty much statewide this year in the budget. That all of these are going to have some level of public transportation funding support, but that message never gets out. And I think you're right. I think you're onto something, because I think if we look at leadership and really pulling resources, not just across large municipalities in Pennsylvania, but against those smaller municipalities and counties in Pennsylvania, and across history, across the diaspora, to make sure that we bring in important people like Harriet Tubman and Nelson Mandela, to bring this cause, this just cause, to the forefront in Pennsylvania.
Wasn't Just Cause like the name of an invasion or something? That sounds like
yeah,
people invaded a country under the name of
We
Just
still got
Cause.
501 school districts. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
God
well,
bless them, I say.
well, and if we're lucky, we'll be able to call her Tim Potts, and he'll be able to talk about some of this consolidation. Final thoughts, because we are at 1 minute over, according to my clock here, and I've been pretty good about keeping us cruel taskmaster that I am.
Most important reason for people to go out and vote on May 15th. What's at stake? Celeste Taylor.
Well, it's not about politics. It's about democracy. It's about one vote and making sure it counts. It's your voice.
Leon Trotsky says the workers must control the means of production. Khari Mosley, most important reason for people to get out there to the polls on May 15th.
Well, I think the most important reason is, democracy can't work without, people being involved. That's one of either the virtues or the flaws in the design of democracy. It can't work with just 10% of the people participating. It becomes broken, and, the more people that participate in the process, the more accountable, the more responsive, and the more effective our elected officials will be, and the more effective and responsive that our system will be in general.
Well, and I think even more basic, all props to y'all, even more basic to those very important issues is the right to bitch, gripe, moan, and complain, which every American holds dearest and nearest to their heart, especially here in Western Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh.
You sacrifice
you
it.
can't bitch and gripe if you don't get off your ass and vote, for crying out loud. If you do and you try to do it around me, the first thing I'm going to ask is if you vote, and if I don't know that you have, then we're going to sick democracy on you. So with that very important
That's not me.
concluding word, yeah, well,
Everybody
it's all of
vote.
us. It's
May
the
15th.
people united, which I got a
We'll
memo
never be
last
defeated.
week. Evidently,
Apparently
we'll
we'll
never
never
be
be
defeated.
divided.
Yes. defeated.
Whatever.
Well, and with these words of mock wisdom, we leave you high atop Polish Hill here at Gooski's, where you're welcome to join us next week. I don't know. Well, give us a call. Email us. It's a whole blog thing, but we'll let you know in the next one. Thanks so much for listening. This is the third round, and goodbye. So, fourth round then, eh?
Round three.